Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to the live stream for today. And if you're tuning in on the live stream or you picked this video up, you should know that this is actually a segment from today's podcast, which is an audio podcast. A lot of times I do live stream a large portion of my podcasts on YouTube and other platforms. And I do that because it's a great thing to do. The podcast I do on Thursdays, though, with expert council members is a bunch of content that's submitted to me by my expert council members. They're kind of a variety show. There's really no way to live stream the whole thing. So it's going to be a short one, 10 to 15-ish minutes maximum. And if you want to catch the rest of the show, get over to tspc.co and you will be able to check things out. With that, we're going to go ahead and go into the segment for the audio, get the recording going on the other side, and strap in, folks. We're going to talk about some truth today. All right, so my segment for the Expert Council show today is going to be on censorship. And I'm also live streaming this for the folks that are on YouTube and other platforms, which is kind of ironic, given the graphic that I've put up right now. For those that can't see it, it is just a simple graphic of the Google logo, the Facebook logo, and the Twitter logo, or as I call them, gulag, face fuck, and shitter. And it says above it, where they have burned books, they will end in burning human beings. This is a relatively famous quote, though not so famous anymore, because I don't think people in power really want us to look at this quote and think about the significance of it. This was made by Heinrich Heine in 1823 in a book. That book was later one of the many books that the Nazis burned in 1933 during the famous book burnings. And I've often asked people that seem like they're willing to condone any use of censorship by big tech. Can you tell me a time in history where the people that burned the books were the good guys? And they don't ever have an answer for that other than, oh, it's not the same. It's not the same. To me, it is the same, and it's worse at the same time. And we have more tools to fight back at the same time. Something can be worse, but yet you have more advantage in your response to it. And that's how I feel about this, right? And I don't remember where I first heard this quote, but again, you know, where they burn books, they will eventually burn human beings. There's many ways that that's been laid out, because it was not in English when originally printed, so it's been translated. But that's the gist of it. That any regime, any power that will suppress what authors have to say will end in literally burning authors, harming humans. And when you look at that today, I think that there's a lot of ways to see that. But I think what we have to start with on the concept of freedom of speech and being able to say what you want to say and actually be heard. So many people focus on, well, I have my right to say the things that I wish to say. Okay, fine. I agree 100%. But there's another party involved. There's another party involved in that. And that's the people who wish to hear what you want to say. And it would be very easy for these platforms to simply respond to people that complained about anything that anybody said with, you know, don't subscribe to them, don't watch them, don't listen to them. Or if they said the things that we are saying are dangerous misinformation and they're scientifically untrue, well, let's have a debate. Let's have rigorous academic debate. They don't want that either. Instead, they choose the path of suppression. And there's a lot of ways this can harm humans. I think that Mr. Heine was very clear in what he meant, and I think that the Nazis showed that to be exactly the kind of thing that happens. Burning humans doesn't necessarily mean with fire, but the massive death that came out of that mentality, that if there was an idea you disliked, you just destroyed the idea versus countered the idea. And the idea that it's because it's misinformation is total bullshit. These platforms are full of crap. Do you know how much misinformation? And I'm not even talking about the establishment misinformation. I'm like blatant misinformation that creators put out that these platforms are fine with. How many videos can you find right here on Gulag's YouTube, or ScrewTube as I like to call it, claiming the earth is flat? There's thousands of them. There's like full-length 3-hour documentaries claiming this. One of you guys out there said, hey, I want you to look at this thing. Take a look at it. And it goes into the flat earth shit too. But what it opened up with was pretty interesting. It was that, like, there were massive die-offs, was the claim, in the early and mid-1800s in cities all around the world. And it presented evidence. And you know what the evidence was? Here's a picture of London. Here's a picture of Paris. Here's a picture. And then here's the population that was supposed to be in that city at the time. And the streets are eerily empty. This is, and it's primitive photography. You couldn't do it with a flash cube. This is the middle of the day. It's Rome. It's London. You know, it's Prague. It's Moscow. It's Paris. Where are the people? And it kept showing these pictures and saying, and where are the people? Where are the people? The people were there. You just couldn't see them. You just couldn't see them. Do you know why you couldn't see them? Is anybody here enough of a photography bug to know why you couldn't see them? Because the way you took a picture back then is you set up your camera on a tripod, least it move a fraction of a millimeter and blur everything. And you uncovered it, and you did that for a very long exposure time. And people moving through the thing would not register on the film. These are some of the earliest photographs ever taken and recorded. They weren't capable of recording an image of something moving. That's why. Now, is it dangerous misinformation? No. Is it total freaking bullshit? Absolutely. Do I want, even though I think it's total bullshit, do I want ScrewTube and Facebook and shitter to suppress that person's, I call it a mockumentary, right? It makes a mockery of documentaries. It's a mockumentary. No. I'm happy to have that information presented, and I'm happy maybe once to point out how it's misleading, and I'm happy to debate that. And there is a point where when something's so stupid and so ridiculous and so fails to meet the merits of fact that it can be ignored, but I'm either going to ignore it or I'm going to debate it, and maybe I'll learn something in the debate. Maybe the other side will learn something in the debate. Maybe we'll become more educated together. And when information, like this video probably will be, is censored and suppressed, that debate cannot happen. And when that debate cannot happen, not only am I denied my basic right to say what I want to say, more importantly, you are denied the right to hear it. You're denied the right to examine my evidence as I present it. And I know there's a lot of people who say, well, Jack is a libertarian. Don't you believe that since Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these platforms are private corporations, that they have a right, just like you do, to decide what goes on their property or their platform? Yes and no. The reason it's, let's start off with the yes. The yes is simple. I do believe if you own a thing and it's your thing and you clearly state the rules for people that use your thing and they break those rules and you want to kick them out, you can. I can start a bar tomorrow and say anybody that comes in this bar can't wear a hat. You might think it's a stupid rule, don't come to my bar. Or you have to wear a hat. Or I might open a restaurant and say jacket and tie required. Right? And you can come or not come. And I think I fully have the right to do that. And I think, you know, at that macro level, does YouTube have a right to take this video down or any other of my videos down, which they've done? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. However, I think you have to state the rules clearly. And then when you exercise those rules, especially when somebody, like some of these creators who have built followings of millions of people that legitimately help build your operation, and they have a financial asset that you can destroy with the flip of a switch, I think you owe them an explanation as to what they've done wrong. And you can't get an appeal through. You can't get an explanation. They won't debate you. They just decide they don't like you and they shut you off. And by the way, we'll talk about this tomorrow, but Facebook came out in court and admitted their fact checkers are not fact checkers. They literally said, it's our opinion. There's no fact checking. It's our opinion. And then you sully the reputation of these people by labeling quacks. And then you get a coordinated effort like the Day of Long Knives, right? Where like you take 20 or 30 of your top alternative creators and Twitter and Facebook and Google conspire together, which is antitrust as shit, by the way, and platform them simultaneously. That under our own law, if we actually enforced our own law on the people that control everything, is criminal as shit. That's totally antitrust. That's totally not okay under U.S. law. And they just keep doing it. And to me, it is worse because we now live in this interconnected society where the vast majority of people, whether it's smart to do or not, get their information from Google, Facebook, and Twitter. That's where they get, even the stuff that comes out in different media and stuff, the way it gets aggregated to where it comes through and you can pick and choose what you want to see is through those. It doesn't have to be. And that's why, even though I think this is worse, it's better in a way. It's better for us. It's not better that they're doing it. It's better for us. But before I go there with why and what I think we need to be doing, I want to talk about just real quick. I've lost my train of thought for a second, guys. Now we'll just go on. Sorry. The reason it's better for us is that we have the ability now to circumvent things. Back at the time that books were burned, when someone wanted information, they had to go to a library or a newsstand or something like that and get the information. Today, the information is literally available at our fingertips. And to put out counter information was extremely difficult, extremely expensive, and extremely risky. There was, I can't remember her name now, there was a girl that was very famously executed in Nazi Germany for being in college and handing out leaflets counter to the government's wishes and beliefs. And that person had to physically make that, take that, have it in their possession, and go out and disseminate it in a threat of certainly she would have expected to be in prison for this, if not executed. And she chose to do it anyway. But it was difficult to do, even if you were willing to take the risk. Today, if you want to get information out, for instance, if YouTube takes this video down, do you think it's gone? Do you think it's destroyed? See, back when they burnt books, they only could burn the books they could get the copies of. Right? But we live in a world now with digital elements that we can make as many of them as we want. We can make as many of them as we want. In fact, it's an infinite thing. So some of you will probably download this video and then re-upload it to various alternative platforms. Some of them on things like blockchain. If YouTube leaves this up long enough, and they might leave it up, period. Who knows? Sometimes that's the thing, right? You can come out and say shit like this and they delete you, and you come out and say like shit like this on a different day, and I guess the fact checker or whoever reviews it like might flag it, but it doesn't get taken down. You just don't know. There's no consistency. But if they leave it up just long enough so that it fully processes, then the magic over at Odyssey is going to happen. It's going to go, and it's going to be on Odyssey on the blockchain, and then they can't take it down. We need to be using these alternative platforms. Especially when you see content from, somebody that's not going to get mad, strip that shit down. If they don't have an Odyssey account, throw it up on Odyssey for them, right? I even know a couple of people who have taken some big time creators and created like a mirror channel for them and started putting their stuff on and keep it's over here. It's over here. You can have it whenever you want it. Come claim it. I'll turn it over to you. I know people doing that. Can you do that with 20 people? Probably not. You can do it with one. I know one person that did it for a creator I really like, and eventually said, "Hey, you have like $3,000 in LBC credits sitting on your channel. Are you sure you don't want this?" And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute." Right? We have so many tools available to us today. This is like, think about it like if you're a Star Trek nerd. If you strike me down, I will grow more powerful than you can possibly imagine. There's something interesting that happens when one of these platforms bans something. All of a sudden, people who never wanted to see it want to see it. People don't like it when you take away their right to see a thing. When you take away their right to see a thing. So we need to use everything we have to make sure that they can't burn the books anymore. And you need to see this as what it is. It is a modern day book burning. That's what it is. It is the same thing. The idea is dangerous to the system of power and corruption, and therefore it must be silenced. That's why it's the same. It doesn't matter that the medium has changed from, printing press, bound volumes to things people write or say or put into visual presentations and disseminate. It doesn't matter that the way that the information is disseminated has changed. That doesn't have anything to do with calling it what it is, and it's a modern book burning, right? Because it's the same motivation. And it's clearly the case. If there's something that can be logically refuted, these platforms have no problem with the claim being false. They say it's dangerous misinformation. Just take the miss out and you get it right. It's dangerous information, as in it is dangerous to those in power. And that's why they fear it. Because I'll ask you, when it comes to the whole COVID pandemic, have you seen two experts in a professional environment professionally debate at a high academic level various different treatment methodologies, the efficacy of vaccinations? Have you seen that? Either one of those? Have you seen them debate at a rigorous academic level the way science is supposed to be? Have you seen a debate on best practices to mitigate the spread of the disease? No, you haven't. No, you haven't. And if their case was as strong as they claim it was, you would. If what they claim was as true as they say, they would welcome debate and the opportunity to use debate to make their case better. Just like you would. If you made a claim and you could back it up fully and wholly with credible information, the best thing in the world for you would be to be challenged by somebody with some level of credibility saying that you're wrong. That would be wonderful. Then you would say, okay. You'd say, okay, let's have a debate about this. In this instance, though, we have somebody like Steve Kirsch. You need to look him up. Kirch, I think is how you spell his last name. He writes on Medium or Substack. He writes on Substack. This guy's put together a foundation. He's got $5 million in his foundation. He's offered $1 million here, $200,000 there. In one case, he offered all $5 million to encourage debate. Come debate me on this subject publicly. On all types of things to do with the COVID pandemic. No one. If you feel it's a conflict of interest, tell me what charity you want the money to go to. I'll put the money in escrow prior to the debate. As soon as you say you'll do it, no one, zero, none. Because they're afraid. They're terrified. In my earlier segment in the podcast today, we had a segment from Ron Paul. And one of the pieces of that segment, the anchor part from Chris Rossini, was how this is a great time for champions of liberty. And that is, again, why this is good. As bad as it is, this is good. The fact that you have the ability now to demonstrate to people that what you claim is happening is actually happening, to show them, look, this person put this information. Oh, that can't be true. Oh, well, here it is. Well, you said they took it down. Well, they did, but here's 20 other places that it exists. Don't you want to know what you're not allowed to see? And 9 out of 10 people will go back to sleep. So what? Screw them. They have every right to sleep. You want to stay in the matrix, you can. But if 1 in 10, just take a look. And then the number of people who are awake to this reality grows. That's the reason they suppress it in the first place. That's the reason they suppress it in the first place. They're not worried about the 9 out of 10 who will willingly stay asleep. They're worried about the one that will wake up out of that group. because then you move them over and then there's more voices. And then you go and you repeat the process. The 9 out of 10 stayed asleep, right? They're now 10 out of 10. But the next time the process repeats, another one wakes up. And they're terrified of this. They're terrified of this. And that is the entire point. Keep banning us, idiots. Go ahead. Shadow ban us, outright ban us, deplatform us. Do whatever you want. Every time you do it, you only prove you fear that which we have to say, and that you do not have the logic or the facts or the capability to generate enough rhetoric to sufficiently argue the thing that's being brought up. You're weak. You're weak. These corporations are worth tens of millions of dollars, and they're afraid of a redneck hippie duck farmer. So they'll cut out his tongue because they fear what he has to say. With that, let's go ahead and wrap up there. I appreciate everybody that came in on the live stream today. Sorry that I flaked out there for a second on you, but really it's what it is, guys. The more they strike us down, the more powerful they make us. I live for the day that YouTube totally shuts me down. You jackasses over there, if you're watching this video, if you're my fact checker today, you know what? This is what would be cool. Whatever reason you're going to give for shutting down this video, prove me wrong. I mean, we know you won't do it, don't we? Prove me wrong. Get your little fact checker buddies together. You can go 3-on-1 with me in a debate, and let's debate any claim that I've made today. Or take the easy option and click the button that shuts me off. See how that works out in the long term.